house is right on the road. The backyard doesn't have much either, so.
Well, I got that. I got a really short drive to get a
the City of Monona Plan Commission, Monday, April 25th. Please call the roll.
Chair Moore.
Here.
Alder Holmquist. Here. Mr. Stein. Here. Ms. Fox is on her way. Mr. Homburg.
Here.
And Ms. Fallett is excused.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 11th, 2022?
I'll move approval. Second.
Okay, I have approval and second. Are there any changes, corrections, additions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. We're now to the appearance section, and you are. If anybody is here for anything that is has a public hearing on the agenda, you can wait until the public hearing, or you can appear during the appearance section. It's your call. I know we have at least one person who's registered to appear. Again, Colleen O'Keefe. Colleen, if you'd like to wait until the public hearing of the request before us, you're welcome to do that. You don't have to do it during the. It's totally up to you. I can wait. Okay. Okay. Great. Is there anyone else that you're aware of that is interested in appearing on this?
I see a couple of folks on Zoom, so maybe we can check there as well.
Okay. If you are have jumped in virtually and you are on Zoom, is there anyone that would like to appear during the appearance section? Again, it's your option. You can appear during the appearance section, or if it's an agenda item for a public hearing, you're welcome to wait until that public hearing. Is there anybody? If so, please raise your hand. Are you seeing anybody, Alyssa, that's interested? Okay, great, thank you. Then we will close the appearance section. There is no unfinished business, and we'll move to new business, number 6A, public hearing for Sony Realty Company on the request for approval of a Phase 1 Precise Implementation Plan, PIP, for the site located at approximately 112-208 Owen Road for a mixed-use development. Case number 2-009-2022. Welcome. Absolutely. And Bert, if you could again introduce yourself.
I'm Bert Slendy with Slendy Realty.
Thank you.
And we've been before your committee a few times. We had two pre-hearing conferences and a couple of planning commission meetings, and we've done everything that we have heard to try to implement your recommendations. And if we've missed some things, we're here to hear them. Hopefully we've touched all the bases. And I have Bob Feller from Canopy and Bruce here, who's our architect, and will be available to answer questions. And Jeff Gillis, our partner, who is also our contractor, the owner of FCM Construction. So I guess, Bob, if you want to answer any comments or questions. And I also have Brian Arkand here virtually. Brian is our engineer.
Okay.
So I guess
they're
a little bit more equipped to get into details than I am. So.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Well, if actually, if we could, for the benefit of the people that are tapping in virtually and may not fully understand the detail that's involved in a PIP versus the general development plan, if one of you could walk through the PIP, the more detail that we have than we had, for instance, at the last meeting when we approved the I would welcome that. And in fact, if you wanted to put it up, share the screen on Zoom, that might be helpful as well.
Okay.
The PIP has,
I'll let Bob address.
by design, more detail. That's why they call it a precise implementation plan.
Good evening. My name is Bob Feller with Cadothi Bruce Architects. Thank you for letting me speak. As mentioned earlier, approval has been granted for the GDP on this two-phase project. First phase is a 96-unit building. Second phase is a 79-unit building. Both are 4 stories. Both are a mixture of market rate and workforce type housing. Since the last presentation, architecturally, we really have not made any adjustments to the drawings, so they are consistent. Civil engineering has continued to develop further. But a couple of the things to point out, I guess, within the space is that we do have underground parking below the building, accessed from the side of the building, and then phase 2 from this side. The site for phase 2 is the existing post office building. So once phase 1 is completed, the intention is that the post office has the potential of moving across into the commercial space here, which would then free up this phase for phase 2 construction. Within the site, we have access to over the underground parking. It goes out, I'm going to back up. The underground parking extends beyond the footprint of the building. It goes out to the side here. And instead of having just a concrete block building, we're actually taking advantage of that as outdoor patio space, which we'll get to here in some of the views. I'm going to scroll past the civil engineering drawings and get to the renderings. So here we go. First basement level plan. Again, the footprint of the building above the 4-story portion extends in this C shape, and this portion is what extends out beyond the footprint of the building. 96 units. Central entry point to the lobby here, commercial space here for the potential of the post office, and a secondary commercial space here. The outdoor patio space. The mixture of units is a combination of studios, 1 bedrooms with den, 2 bedrooms, and 2 bedroom with den. Second and third floors are identical in layout. And then the 4th floor, you'll notice that we've stepped the building back. That's done intentionally to reduce the scale, remove the feeling of the building just being an extrusion out, add some interest to it, create these outdoor patios, make it more interesting, and then that coupled with the forms and the changes of materials really just adds some dynamic to the building and more of a neighborhood type feel. And then this is actually the phase 2 building, which, if you don't mind, I'll just skip past. We're not asking for PIP on this. And I'll go past the black and whites. So then the exterior materials, combination of brick and composite sidings, like a hardy type siding. We do have a wood grain look, and that's what the brown color is, as well as a painted version, which is the more gray type. So black composite windows, aluminum storefront, black railings, real, nice, crisp look to it all, very contemporary type feel.
Useful life on that composite siding is
30, 40 years easily. Yeah. And then just a portion here where we'd have the underground parking entrance. So we are recessing that down, and that'll be hidden. And a couple of aerial views. Along the side of the street, we are proposing some higher density trees just for some screening, privacy. The landscape is quite generous. It's beautiful, creating kind of a streetscape along it with the boulevard trees. Accenting the corners with masonry, rich materials really anchor the building. And again, that stepping of the form, not just in the materials, but the physical stepping back of the building to create these outdoor patios up on 4th floor. That reduces the scale of the building and more human approach. And then the units all will have balconies or patios. And then here's a view from that interior courtyard. The intention is that we'll have some seating areas, barbecue stations, bocce ball, bags area. Again, promoting a little bit more private outdoor activity space. It is shared by all people within the building. Another view of that. Also have a dog run in the back. It's very popular. And then between the phases, we are proposing a shared drive with parallel parking. There's a view of it. So phase 1, phase 2. And a view looking down that shared road. Are there any questions?
No, I'm sure the commission will have questions, but on the detail. But I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak during the public hearing portion for this particular application, including on Zoom? Anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak during the public hearing portion? Okay. That being the case, we'll close the public hearing and move to 6B, consideration of action. First Realty Company on the request for approval of a Phase 1 precise implementation plan, PIP, for the site located at approximately 112-208 Owen Road for a mixed-use development, case number 2-009-2022. Doug?
Thank you. So again, just to go over this is the Phase 1 precise implementation plan of the Owen Road GDP. 96 apartment units are proposed, as well as just over 3,000 square feet of commercial space, including the possible relocation of the USPS location, as well as 174 parking stalls. As a reminder of the process, this was recommended by the Plan Commission, the General Development Plan, the GDP was, to the City Council at the last meeting, April 11th. City Council had their first read on April 18th, and the second read is scheduled for May 2nd. The City Council would also need to review any GDP were to be recommended to them, tentatively scheduled for the 2 meetings in May. The PIP shall present in greater detail the information given approximately in the General Development Plan, so my comments are going to get a little bit more specific here. Initially, this property was located in the Retail Business District, zoning district, that was subsequently rezoned to the Community Design District, the CDD, and that was done, recommended in January by the Plan Commission, and City Council formally approved that in February. The CDD allows for the phased development of the project, which is what the applicant here is looking to propose. The units, as mentioned, were there's going to be a workforce housing component, which at the last meeting they mentioned was going to be between 35 and 50% in phase 1, which would be income restricted workforce housing, with the remainder of those being market rate rentals. In terms of the architecture, the submitted plans included elevations and renderings for both phases, and these do align with the GDP. There have been no changes that have been made. Please note, just for those looking at the plans, it does include phase 2, but they're not being included at this time. Both buildings are 4 stories with a combination of masonry and composite siding, exterior entrances enhancing the pedestrian scale of the building, and the upper level units including balconies for private outdoor space. In terms of the site design and the lot coverage, phase 1 has nearly 31,000 square feet of open space, which is 30% of the total, including dedicated green space, which makes up about 23%, with the balance being attributable to the plaza deck. As mentioned, that is the area above the underground parking, heavily landscaped, and is going to be an amenity for the tenants. At previous meetings, the Commission discussed that seems to meet the intent of the green space, of the open space, and therefore could be counted, so it would meet the 30% guideline as included in the zoning ordinance. There are no specific setback dimensions included within the CDD zoning district, typically viewed on a case-by-case basis. Previous materials, the applicant did include a setback analysis, which did reference how it aligns with the adjacent buildings, and it appeared to perform favorably, offering a good buffer to those buildings around it. Vehicle access and circulation has been discussed at the previous meetings. There'll be 2 curb cuts along Owen Road, which will be used for the access to the development, as well as a private connector street incorporated into Phase 1, running perpendicular to Owen Road. One of the changes that has been made was going to be how Phase 2, the current retail center, is going to operate during construction, and the applicant did include on one of the civil sheets plans for that. It's a 3-point turn. I see the engineer is here and can answer questions. That was deemed to be the safest way to do so. They did look for a clear flow, but the 3-point turn was deemed to be the safest. So that was one of the changes. In terms of parking, the applicant proposes a total of 174 stalls, 74 of those being surface parking, as well as 100 underground. As far as the city code requirements, that is going to be 13 stalls above city code, accounting for both the residential and commercial elements. There are also a number of bike parking stalls, both at grade as well as underground, as well as 10 EV-ready stalls in the underground parking as well. As far as the landscaping, that is going to be regulated based upon the number of parking stalls, and there would need to be, with the 174 stalls in total, a total of 15 canopy trees that would be required, as well as a total of 2,610 landscaping points, again, based upon the number of stalls. The landscaping is shown in the submitted materials and exceeds the number of points with just over 3,350. Plans also show 40 trees, 40 in total, including 29 evergreen trees. So there are only 11 canopy trees, but they have used the evergreen trees as buffer, especially to the adjacent residential to the west. So the Commission may choose to discuss if that's a fair compromise for this. Also of note, the dog run along the property line. It would be a 4-foot fence, vinyl-coated chain link. The plans currently show for that to be sod. I think there had been some discussion as to whether turf was going to be a better option for that. For reference, recently the current 2 did just have a pet run area that was built. That did remain the sod rather than synthetic turf. A condition of approval was added to that it needs to remain in good shape. If not, it may need to return to the Commission. So that may be something the Commission chooses to discuss. And another point to the landscaping, the steel edging was added to around the landscaping beds, again, based upon previous discussion. Photometric plan for the site lighting is also included in the packet. No more than 3-foot candles of light are allowed at the property line, and the plan complies with that requirement. There was a total of 23 light fixtures proposed for the whole development, 15 of those at Phase 1, including along the connector street, and the materials also include the specifications for those fixtures as well as the height of the poles. Via Becker conducted a review of the site layout, design, stormwater erosion control, utilities, and vehicle circulation. That review letter is included, and we're also joined tonight by Darren Pope if there are any questions from the Commission. No signage was included at this point, and that would most likely need to return to the Commission at a later date for that. Finally, plans were submitted to department heads for review. You can see the fire chief's comment there. It also overlaps with the Via Becker review as well. With that, the city staff recommendation is that the PIP be approved with the finding of fact and conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. With that, we'll open it up to the Commission. Chris, would you like to start?
Okay. Again, thanks. I think you did a nice job responding to the vast majority of the Commission's concerns and comments. I think it ended up being a little better project, hopefully, for you.
Yeah, I hope so. Time will tell.
A question, my first one would be for Darren. I went through the water quality report, and it looks like what I'm getting at is the existing detention basin that takes care of the strip center. It looks like it's being reduced in size. But if I read it right, that also was considered pre and post, so that reduction in size of the water quality for the strip center, it's still okay with phase one before it goes into the final water quality control measures?
Yes, the underground detention that they are providing, looking at the SLAM modeling, that they were using the underground detention basin. And so they obtained, I believe it was 54% TSS removal from that in the post condition.
What I'm asking is, there's an existing basin on the existing site, and that's being reduced in size. So is the water quality still being held the same as pre and post? In other words, was that run through the SLAM model? I thought it looked like that reach was. Perhaps your engineer could answer that.
Brian?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian. I think you're muted, Brian.
He's unmuted, but we're not
Do
able to
you know
hear.
the answer, Darren? Oh, boy.
Yeah, when I looked at the SLAM modeling, and there's a diagram that they have that shows the different reaches for it, and it did look like it accounted for. I did ask for I want to verify the settings in the model as well, so I did ask for the electronic file of it. But I believe that he did account for the reduced size in that existing pond in the modeling of it.
That's my question. Because I looked at the SLAM also. Can we hear you now? Hey,
can you hear me now?
I'm sorry, you're going like, shh.
Hey, yeah. Go ahead, Brian. Try again. Technology.
A little left.
Still nothing?
Got you now?
Gotcha.
All right. Sorry about that. Technology, right? Yeah, there is some interim modeling we did in HydroCAD. I'll have to verify if we ran interim wind slam conditions, but I don't know how much TSS we're getting out of that existing basin because it doesn't actually have any outlets. It's really just a hole in the ground right now with no outlet piping. So ultimately, we're meeting the full site TSS requirements through the underground system and the full phase one and phase two build out. So I wouldn't anticipate that being an issue in the interim condition. But I'll verify that.
Yeah, if you and Darren could coordinate on that, my concern would be it is a isolated basin, but we had a lot of issues in that area in the past with water, excessive water during a rainstorm, so they put in this huge basin and it holds it during a storm, but now I don't know how much you're taking away, half or better that's gone. So what will happen now in a storm until phase two goes on, is that accounted for?
And so as far as runoff and
Yes.
water volume goes, that did get modeled for sure in the interim through HydroCAD. Wind slam would just be for TSS removal. That I'm not sure if I did an interim condition for or not, but there is an interim condition in HydroCAD included in the stormwater report.
Yeah, if we're good then, because if you've modeled the quantity, that would be the concern.
Yep.
Quality, anything that goes in that basin is basically 100% removed, so you're good there.
Right. Yep.
Okay, thank you. That was thankfully my most technical question. Another one, I believe I saw in your right, Brian, those are all framed inlet protection that you have in your detail, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. I have to mention this since a former commissioner is sitting here and he would be irritated if I didn't. What's the color temperature of the lights? Seriously?
Seriously, I have no double check. I say 3,000.
Okay, that'd be good. And what we always look for is, so you don't get that, with LEDs, you get that blinding white light, which is a little irritable. And I went through it, and every fixture you listed has the ability to go from like 2,900 some to 2,000, all the way up to 9,000. And I couldn't tell from what you have there, so. Okay, thank you. And the last, kind of the last one, the one that's, we disagree severely on is the traffic flow at the post office. And I went there and I sat for about 10 minutes and watched. In the 10 minutes I was there were 6 cars went through the post office driveway. And there is no way that it's safer to have people going in and out of there trying to make a wide turn with all that traffic, the people coming to the post office, and the people trying to get those post office boxes. It'll be a disaster, not to mention the driveways. The driveways are too close. And that's what we dealt with on Monona Drive. And I don't want to give a history lesson, but we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on Monona Drive buying up easements and areas so we could get rid of these driveway cuts that are right tight together, because that's where all our accidents were happening. And Monona Drive, we used to be one of the highest accident rates per traveled mile in the state. And now afterwards we won awards because we got rid of them. So I don't believe it's a safe situation the way it is right now. And it's hard to come up with good solutions. I don't want to tell you just walk away. One thing I thought about when I was sitting there today and watching that traffic and knowing how I do it is almost everybody that comes into that post office goes through the bowling alley lot, turns in, and then goes back out.
Correct.
All day. Not all day. I wasn't there that long. But I never saw anybody come in that driveway. So my thought is, since this is an interim measure, if we made it an exit only, just get rid of the entrance half of that driveway, close it right up.
Oh, sure.
That way, we don't have 3/4 of the accidents that are trying to happen when people are trying to dive in here or dive in there and changing their mind. At least when you're exiting, you're stopped and you're watching what's going on. So we get rid of the most of them, and it would allow an orderly exit from that. And I think that's something you could do. They'd have to come in your main driveway and then turn in either of those cuts you have to line themselves up, and they go straight up. But that way they can queue too. I've been in that line many times where it's 3 deep. Not for long, but you deep in it. And it'd be really difficult to do a Y turn in that scenario. Plus, we could get rid of the issue with the traffic problem with the double driveway so close. And I'd like to hear other comments, but it's sitting there. It's the best thing I can come up with right now. The other way would be to make the center, the post office entrance, your only entrance, and then your apartments, the surface parking, would have to go out through there. But I don't know if that's a better solution. I think there's more traffic comes through the center, but I think it would be awkward. And people are very used to coming in the bowling alley entrance.
Oh, I agree with you.
So if we did that, but we just...
Brian, do you see any reason that can't be addressed?
Well, we are proposing the exit only from the post office once phase 1 is built. I agree with Mr. Homburg that that was our kind of solution for that interim until the phase 2 building gets built to deal with the driveways, which are too close. Obviously, that driveway entrance is going away altogether when phase 2 is built. But we do have I'll call it the interim condition to deal with. I'll have to get together with the contractor. The issue we're having with the phasing is dealing with the underground stormwater system and how we can feasibly build that in phases and how to safely route traffic through an active construction site. Because like you mentioned, it's a pretty heavily used post office. So how do we do that safely and feasibly while phasing the underground stormwater system?
Okay, I will put it on as a condition because the plans they submitted show people coming in the post office driveway, doing a wide turn and coming back out. So what we have before us is not that. So, and how you handle it during construction, hey, the post office is your tenant. You want to keep them going. So I'm sure you'll be quite motivated to keep that not an issue.
I would agree.
Okay. And then landscaping plan, I really would like to hear what Rob has to say. For me, gosh, I'd like to find a place to put another canopy tree in front of that phase 1 building, but I don't know if there's a reasonable place or not. If it ends up looking like your renderings, architectural renderings, those are beautiful. But then when I cross-reference some of the plantings, maybe I don't see the blossoming and stuff. But, again, I'll just say, I've said it before, this will rent up right away when it's new. You want reason for people to want to be here 10 and 20 years from now. And when you have some annuals there and it looks good, when you come home and it looks good, you want to be there. You want to come back. So that'd be my comment, is to make sure it looks really nice. another thing, I don't know if you went through the points. I like what they did, but we generally in the past didn't give points for like grasses and things, but they belong there. So I see they took the liberty to take points for that, and where they belong, if they're the right points for where, I don't know, but we've talked about it many times. How do we do that? Because grasses and different things add landscaping character to the project. I mean, annuals add character. They make a big difference. So it's something we should keep in our minds. Okay, thank you.
I just like the record to show that I do not use the bowling. I didn't realize that the protocol was using the bowling alley to get to the post office.
You're doing the Y turns.
Nobody sent me that memo when I moved to Monona. But good to know that everybody else does that, because we can plan accordingly.
They patched it last week for us. 2 weeks ago, maybe?
They have to patch it
We'll continue to
constantly.
patch.
Yeah,
I come in that way too, Chris.
yeah. Okay, great. Susan, welcome.
Thank you, and I apologize for being late. I had another meeting that wasn't quite over, but I was finally able to leave. That was my main concern too, was the post office. I kept looking at this and thinking, really, that's what they're going to suggest? Because I use it all the time. Usually I go in and use the drop box. I don't always go in. And if I go in, even when I go in, I drive in through the bowling alley now. I used to sometimes then drive in the right driveway, but I agree. I think it's particularly when you think about holiday time, which will be during your construction, it gets really heavy usage, and there just has to be a better way than having all those people do those Y turns. I think that's crazy. So I would agree that needs to be fixed. As far as the landscaping, I liked it, and I guess same with Chris. When I looked at the renderings, these really look beautiful. If it really looks like this, that'll be cool. But it looked to me like you had so many additional evergreens and other kinds of plantings, and you're way over the required number of points. So whether that includes grasses or not, to me that seems appropriate. So I'm fine with it. And just looking at where you're putting the canopy trees, another site for one didn't jump out at me. I mean, if you can find one, that'd be great, but I don't see that as necessary. I thought it was fine. And I think really the only other thing I had was the language about the dog run. I would propose that we add a condition saying that it needs to be maintained. I drove by the current today, and there were 3 dogs out there using it, and I couldn't tell whether it was turf. I wasn't sure if they had done turf or sod, but that was one of our concerns, because it's a relatively small area. If it gets a lot of heavy usage, it's going to take maintenance, and it may be that you start with sod, and if that doesn't work, go with it. Yeah, makes sense. Anyway, that was my only other concern. Otherwise, I think it looks great. And then among the conditions of approval are responses to the items in the Verbecker letter, which I assume you're already working on that. That gets to some of the stormwater issues, and so otherwise looks great. Nothing else.
Great. Thank you. Brian?
I don't know if I have anything more specific to add. The post office was the big one, so I'm glad that was covered. I agree with 4 short canopy trees. I think it's well covered in the significant number of evergreens on the property. I think make up for that. I have the dog run also marked, so you're hearing consistency. And that was it. Nothing else.
Thank you. Rob?
I don't think I have a lot to add, but one thing that was in the report by Verbecker was talking about the retaining walls at the underground parking area. Looks like there's a 7.8-foot drop right there. I don't know if we need to think about a railing at that.
There will be a railing on that.
There will be. Okay.
We have a similar situation in the building we just completed with the exact drop on the wall.
Okay. That's good. I was going to ask for the patio space that's over top of the underground parking. Do you have any idea how much soil medium you're going to be able to have there? Do you have some larger species there?
Landscape architect have that.
It's the architect plus the light bulb.
Typically, 12 inches is the minimum, 18 inches would be the preferred.
Okay. That would impact your plant selection drastically. Because you're not getting anything to grow in 12 inch, any of those shrubs in
Yeah,
12 inches.
We'll verify against any sort of a larger planting. To make
The
sure
more the better, obviously. But that should be a real consideration. And the graphics are great for representing everything. It's an exaggeration of plants. And I understand. I use the same program in my own job. But it's generous. There won't be orange plants along the front building front. But you might be working with what's available in the catalog. As far as your comments, I think we said all along having another street tree would be nice because it is a long run with not a lot of canopy trees. I think there is generally speaking, a pretty robust landscaping. But I mean, if it were up to me, I would move some of the evergreens or replace the evergreens in the back. I mean, there's a lot of them there. They're not going to fill out right away, but I think having another canopy tree along the streetscape side would be beneficial. Another question I had was the grading in the back area there. It looks like you have about 0.56, just over a half a foot for 60 feet. So it's just really flat in the back area there. Is there any concerns about getting positive drainage in that area?
I have to ask Brian that one.
Yeah, across the patio in particular? Or?
Yeah, basically from that patio wall side to the west.
Yeah, I'll have to work with my landscape architect. I think that is a challenge area we'll have to focus on with that, being the roof of the underground parking and then us putting some media on top of there. Sounds like that's something we'll need to revisit and make sure we have proper depth for the plantings he has while also providing drainage across that area as well.
Other than that, the mail circulation, I tend to agree with Chris's comments on that. I think that's all I had.
Thank you.
And I checked, and it is 3,000 light. 3,000 is specified on the plans.
Small print.
Well, it says 30K, so it's code.
Okay. Thank you. I just have two things. One is I know that we talked about the fact that you Kevin talked about automatically roughing out for solar in any designs that he does now, and I really appreciate that commitment. Of course, I would love a commitment even further to actually use the roughing out to put solar in the building. So, I hope that you'll seriously investigate that as a possibility. The second thing is that there's 100 underground stalls, and I'm noticing that you're roughing out for only 10 for EV. And honestly, given the direction that electric vehicles are going, I think that's probably going to be fairly light another 5 years from now. And roughing out is dirt cheap compared to digging up or having to put more EVs in later. I mean, by 2025, we're supposed to have 250 electric vehicles, different types of electric vehicles. I think that's definitely the direction that we're going, and so I would certainly advocate for roughing out for more than 10. Chris.
Are you talking inside or outside?
I'm talking inside.
Yeah, because inside's easy. All I got to do is run more conduit down the wall from where they're ringing it, I would imagine. It's the outside one that's really hard to put back in once the pavement's down.
Yeah.
Yes? Just,
We'll look at it and try
yeah,
to figure
but
it out.
I'm just asking a question. Maybe it'd be better for the building.
You can run, as long as we run the conduit up front, that's not a big deal.
Even if you don't.
Even outside, as long as we know where we want.
Right, but
Right.
if you're bringing it from central location, underground parking, I see you're bringing it across 10, but it said you have the ability to bring more, so as long as you have the circuitry there, you can always pull more wires, take it along the wall. It'd be another thing that'll keep tenants there.
Yeah.
The only question would be if you were, I don't think you're putting any outside, are you?
There's nothing shown on the plan. That doesn't mean we wouldn't add some, you know.
Well, then, the chair's suggestion is, right at this time, just add some conduit that can get you somewhere, because
Right.
once the concrete's down,
Right.
asphalt's down, then it's expensive.
Better safe than sorry. And I think we're going to,
I mean, the industry is changing, we put them in other buildings and they get used that much so far.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
frustrating,
We've done
actually.
we've done 3 buildings together.
Hey, Jeff, we have 4,
Obviously, things are changing.
yeah,
As of today, they don't get used. We spend thousands of dollars putting those things in. So, but like I said,
Well, hopefully that
the world
evolves.
is changing. The world is changing.
yeah. Is it,
Jeff was trying to answer
Yeah.
the question, too.
Jeff?
I was just going to echo basically what they said. We've got 4 chargers up in Green Bay, and they haven't been taken off their plugs once for 2 years. But I realize it's a different market.
yeah, I was going to
Hopefully,
say, I was going to say, definitely a different market.
In what way?
It is. Yep.
Just kidding.
A, it's a different market, and B, I mean, I don't know, is the demographic in terms of the sort of age and stage is similar for the buildings that you're done up there?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay,
There's a
Yeah,
lot.
I mean, 25 years old plus and making 45 to 700,000 a year. So
okay.
I would say. Yeah.
Well, you know, we could be wrong, but you know,
I
we're
think
just
you're
trying to
suggesting-
save you money in the long run of having to rip up asphalt or having to add
Sure.
after the facts, given that roughing out is easy, so.
Fair.
Okay. With that, any other questions, Brian?
I don't know if this has come up here or if it's come up in other discussions regarding parkland dedication fees connected to.
Yeah.
Oh, it's come up.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure the city staff would have brought up that if nothing else. Yeah.
We can have a condition to remind them of that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're reminded.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Do I have a motion? Chris?
Move approval with the finding of fact as written by staff, conditions 1 through 7 is written by staff, condition 8 is written by staff, but add on with final approval by staff. Condition 9, the same add-on, final approval by staff. Condition 10, reword, the applicant shall respond to the comments from the review letter dated 4/2022, including any additional grading issues discussed on 4/25/22 prior to the building permits being issued, and then the rest is written by staff. 11 and 12 is written by staff. 13, that the post office entrance exit be reconfigured to an exit only, with the entrance pavement being removed and landscaped. Condition 14, that the survey has to be approved and recorded before this is in effect. Condition 15, we don't include the Phase 2 review on this. Condition 16, if the dog run area becomes an issue, Plan Commission may require turf in that area. And condition 17, that additional canopy tree on the Owen Road frontage, final approval by staff. And condition 18, that parkland dedication fees in lieu of land will be required.
Thank you. And Rob, did you want any kind of a condition in terms of soil depth? Or you want to
No,
just leave
I'm
it?
not prepared to
Okay.
demand a certain soil depth. It's just that they want to create a hospital environment, lots of plants. They got to look at what they have there and address it.
Just want to make sure. Brian?
A second. I'll second, then
Okay.
I'll add my comment. The additional canopy tree, was that on Owen, or
Owen.
Rob, if I understood you correctly, you were indicating on the prior road?
That internal street, yeah.
No road? Okay.
Say
So I'm not sure if-
one anywhere,
That's
and
fine.
leave it to them, or?
How about a friendly amendment that an additional canopy tree is required with final approval by staff, instead of telling exactly where it is in
That
the
sounds
motion?
better, yep.
I'm good with that.
Okay. I put some stuff here you haven't seen. Do you have any questions about it or issues with it?
I don't offhand, but I haven't digested it all. Jeff Gillis, do you have anything to comment?
With regards to that entrance into the,
Yeah, actually, if you
nobody
could,
can
that
hear
would be
you.
great. Thank you.
with regards to that entrance, regarding the post office, we'll have to work through that with the designer of the underground storage system. That hasn't been designed yet. There hasn't even been conversation with that a company yet. The civil engineers are not the one that designed that system. So it's another company. So it's going to be a lot of coordination to make that work. So until we bring them on board, how we're going to coordinate the timing and everything, because they're not going to put that system in phase by phase. They're going to come in. They're going to slam that thing in.
Okay.
So that's going to be my concern right now. So we'll try to make that. We just have to coordinate out.
If, just for direction for staff, that the condition isn't to start construction, it's to have it completed by the time you finish construction.
Right.
Because once, you'll have to have that road in to finish your construction.
Right.
At which time, during that paving operation, wherever you are, you can remove that half of the driveway. The reason I asked for that to be removed, if we leave it there, somebody, I'll guarantee, will try to turn in there.
Oh, yeah. No, I hear
So
you.
the reason we take it out and landscape it is so that hopefully most knuckleheads won't go in that way.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Yeah,
If
okay.
you're used to it, you see it, you want to turn in.
Yeah, no.
And I understand you have to get it built. The only way for access to that strip center until you get that driveway in is through that the driveway we're talking about eliminating eventually.
Right.
So that has to stay in until you get your stormwater system in and get your road on top of it.
Correct.
Because that road on top of it is the only access then for the strip center.
Yeah.
So totally get it, but if it's just something by the time you're done, then we'll finally get rid of that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
We're on the same page. Okay.
I added the approval by staff because it was just talking about our consultant, but ultimately, obviously, you always have the final approval before we sign off on it. The survey I put in because that survey has to be recorded, otherwise this building's being built across multiple lots. So it has to be in there that survey has to be not only approved but recorded, because otherwise it wouldn't be illegal. I've mentioned PIP. You know what you've done. We know what you're doing. Your plans are so far along. I mean, you could come in for final approval on the second PIP almost with what you have tonight. So for a record, for people that look at this years from now, they'll, oh, okay, it wasn't approving that. The dog run area, I don't know how to word that any better for you. I'm sure you want to keep it up too.
We are extremely diligent about our
Got it.
pet area.
It's not a huge area, though. It depends on how many pets you get in the building. And it really, for you to invest in the turf, depends on how many pets you get in that building,
Exactly.
whether or not you're going to do it. The additional canopy tree just felt light, and we changed that so it can get anywhere along where we can make it work. And the parkland dedication fees we talked about, because it's just a record that way. Appreciate look at it. Yeah, I bet you do. Thanks.
Brian Hartkamp, do you have any comments or questions?
No.
You guys are good? Okay. Anything else from the commission? Yeah.
Yeah,
Chris.
Darren, so on condition 10, I added including any additional grading issues brought up tonight, which would mean just you and Brian take a look at those specific areas that we've been talking about and just make sure they look good. And as far as the drainage area, just make sure you have some verification that HydroCAD, it should be fine. If they ran the HydroCAD, it should be fine. So my concern was, I don't know if it's half the size. It wasn't obvious from the contours, but a lot of that basin is holding all that water. Now it's being taken out with phase one.
Make sense, Brian?
No, Darren?
Yeah, I mean, we are taking about half of it out, but, phase one will be fully going to the underground system as well, so.
Okay, all right.
So it doesn't need to be as big as what I'm getting at.
Well, none of the bowling alley goes into that basin, I don't think. I think that basin was built
That thing's
specifically
dry
for
as
this, yeah, it was,
It's like,
yeah, I know. But we just have to make sure we don't flood somebody before you build phase two. Hopefully it'll be soon.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Motion on the floor. Discussion on the motion on the floor. Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Another step down. Thank you all for coming tonight. That takes us to item number 6C, public hearing on the request by AIM Distribution for approval of a zoning permit for new use following a period of discontinuation at 851-855 East Broadway, case number 2-010-2022. Welcome. If you could introduce yourself and tell us your address, please.
Yes, my name is Jason McGill, KJK and Associates, a commercial brokerage firm local here in the Madison area, representing AIM Distribution, which is just outside of Baltimore, so in between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. They do distribution, mostly copy and printers, refurbish them, fix them up, distribute them back out. They're looking for warehouse space in Dane County. Warehouse space is pretty hard to find. This spot checked most of the boxes. So we're not changing the highest and best use. We're not changing doors. They love the property as it is.
Okay. Great. Is there anybody else here to speak on the public hearing portion of this particular application? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And got item 6D, consideration of action on the request by AIM Distribution for approval of a zoning permit for a new use following a period of discontinuation at 851-855 East Broadway, case number 2-010-2022. Go. Lisa.
Thank you. Okay. So I will just go over some of the basics of the staff report. As mentioned, the applicant does printer services, and this will be a distribution and warehouse space for their Midwestern operations. The tenant space, the building, is in the community design district, and the space has been vacant for more than 6 months, and it's a new use. It's formerly the Steep and Brew coffee roasters. So because of the 6 months vacancy and the change in use, a zoning permit is required. As they said, they're really not planning to make many changes. There are no interior changes, no signage proposed at this point, although if they do come through for signage, that will be a separate application. Parking is considered sufficient. There are about 50 stalls shared with both this tenant space and then the other tenant space in the building, but they don't expect many visitors, and there will not be that many employees either. There are a couple of overhead doors on the western side of the building, as well as a loading dock on the northern end, which is where deliveries will come through. And then hours of operation will be from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays. No weekend hours are proposed at this point. And then the application was shared with city department heads, and the fire chief commented that the sprinkler system will need to be updated because of the new use, and that is reflected in the recommended conditions of approval. So staff recommend approval with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to start on. All right. Rod?
No, I don't. I think it's an appropriate use, and
Good. Okay. Okay, Brian?
I think it's a wonderful use for the space. No.
Susan?
I agree, and it's a nice-looking building. It looks like it'll be fine. And the only question I had really was, there are no trash and recycling bins out there now, and I assume they'll be in the back of the building, and I don't know if that's the area where we would need any screening or not. We usually do have some kind of screening. I noticed across the street, though, there doesn't appear to be any, so I'm not sure. But anyway, that was my only question, minor. So would you plan to have some sort of
Yeah, I think
screening?
there's a plan for a trash and recycler.
Yeah,
but I imagine Stephenbrook had that as well, so the screening might be there already. If it's
I didn't see anything. It looked like just a parking lot, but maybe.
Okay, well,
But
yes.
easy to solve, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Chris?
One question, how many trucks do you have coming and going in a day?
I think they plan on 2 to 3 trucks a day.
That's it?
I don't think it's a heavy load.
13,000 square feet and 2 to 3 trucks a day?
So semis, 1 to 2 semis a day, unloading printers, fixing them up, and sending them back out. Yeah.
Okay, and they go back out by semi, or?
In all
by
honesty,
straight
they didn't
train?
need all of this square footage, but there isn't much available. So
Sure.
unfortunately, they had to find a spot with about 4,000 to 5,000 more square feet than they needed. So yes, great question, but
Okay, and the one thing I noticed when I was there is the landscaping could use just a little bit refreshing. There's 4 stumps where there's supposed to be trees that have been cut down. And,
we'll let Mark know.
And then the back, he looks like he's been trying to fix a drainage area, and he's got some of the sod, and then somebody drove on it where he's trying to fix it, and then ran a drain tile through by a curb, but then didn't patch the asphalt, just little things like that. Just
Okay.
a little refreshing that
yeah.
it
So
needs.
Mark Bullering owns it, so we'll let Mark know some of these
Yep,
concerns.
well,
Awesome.
to get a zoning permit, it goes to the property, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, that would be or I anticipate it to be a condition, to get
Sure.
that stuff fixed up.
Absolutely.
Typically, this time of the year, it'd be tough to get there, so what kind of a time frame would we usually allow to get that done?
I think it typically depends on the time of year that the plan would be approved. I think something like a 90-day period at this point could be pretty reasonable, if not just a little bit longer maybe.
Is that a bad time, Rob, for putting trees in? Yeah, they're just getting organized now. I know now's ideal, but by the time they get organized and get in
Leave it
there.
in that window, and mid-July is not the greatest, but but by June,
Would it
say,
make
okay.
sense to do 60 days rather than 90 days? from a planning
It would be to the benefit of you and the property owner.
Yeah. Everyone's working together great, so any recommendations, they're going to probably start that to-do list tomorrow.
Yeah, I would get those in before July,
Okay.
into June.
Other than that, I think it's an appropriate use. Welcome to Monona.
Hey, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
That's her line.
Oh, sorry.
Anything else from the commission? No. Do I have a motion?
Sure. I move approval with conditions 1 through 3 as written by staff. Condition 4, that the landscaping be refreshed, including replacing the trees that have been removed, with final approval by staff, and the work be completed within 60 days of the approval of the permit. And condition 5, that if there are any exterior trash or recyclable containers, that they're adequately screened, with final approval by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a second from Rob. Any other discussion? Understanding? Do you have any questions about the other conditions?
I have no questions.
Okay. Great. That being the case, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome to Monona. Thanks for coming tonight. Okay, that takes us to 6E, public hearing on the request by Salvador's Tomato Pies for approval of a fence permit for a new patio at 5507 Monona Drive. Welcome. Head right up to the podium, if you will, Patrick.
Hello, I'm Patrick with Salvatore's Tomato Pies, and so we're hoping to put temporary sound barriers, decorative panels on the patio. Last summer, we had a patio out, And we had the standard fencing that we use in the city of Madison for like cafe seating that you see downtown. So the whole patio was closed off anyway because we serve alcohol in the patio, so we have to have a barrier on it of some sort. The reason that we're looking at these panels is because what we experienced last year, it wasn't very popular because we got a lot of feedback about when cars would pull into the spaces, the headlights would be glaring at people while they were trying to eat, and that wasn't so great. Plus, it's super windy in that parking lot. So this hopefully will make it much more comfortable for diners to actually enjoy the outdoor space. And again, the fencing is temporary. It comes down in the fall for the winter, and it gets put away, so it's not out all year long. Nothing is permanently affixed to the building or the sidewalk, so it's completely movable. It's our hope to create a comfortable spot for diners to enjoy eating outside while we continue to remodel the interior. So that's basically about it.
Thank you. I have a quick question I'll wait until the consideration of action for my question. Great. Patrick, so I have one person who would like to appear. And there might be somebody on Zoom as well, but go ahead, Colleen. If you go, yes, right up to the podium, if you would, please. And introduce yourself and give us your address.
I'm Colleen O'Keefe. I have the property at 5505 Monona Drive. I actually live in Stoughton, that matters. But I'm the Monona Barbershop, and I'm the direct next door neighbor of Salvador's. And first of all, I just got to say, I'm coming in here a little blind because I literally knew nothing about anything until 2 weeks ago. A bunch of lumber got dumped out front. And then I literally just got the notice of this meeting on Friday. So this is how much notice I've had on anything. So, and so I didn't know anything. And now that I've heard that the fence is removable, that will help with one of my concerns, which was the snow plowing. Right. So that one is off. But for me, my biggest concern is if the fence is as tall as they were talking, and it's a privacy fence and stuff, it literally makes me invisible. I'm the smallest building on the place where people come from the south, like I won't even exist. No one will even see me. So that wouldn't be ideal. The other thing in the past, and what we noticed last summer when they had theirs out, I didn't balk at all last summer because I get the COVID stuff was still going. I get, they had remodeling to do, but, we're another year later now. And that was supposed to be temporary. And when you monopolize the whole sidewalk, now people can't walk. I mean, I walk that way to the bank every day, but now I got to go out into the parking lot and go around. Another problem we have is that a lot of his employees, the pizza drivers, they park directly in front of my business. I have a big percentage of elderly people, and so then they have to park farther down. And if they end up having to park farther down, say in front of Salvador's, when you've taken the whole sidewalk, now they have to get out of their car and walk behind cars to get around to the sidewalk again, which could end up in injuries or and making them walk farther. So that's a concern. Plus, in the past, now I've been at the barbershop for 38 years. I've owned it I'm in my 23rd. And the city has never let anybody monopolize the whole sidewalk before. Other businesses along there would have stuff out. The city didn't like it, didn't approve. So I don't understand why the city is thinking this is going to be good. So the other thing that is a concern is that there is a restriction in our deeds. No one is supposed to do anything east of the face of the buildings without all the property owners signing off, and they're supposed to tell us what's going on. We're supposed to all give permission. We were given no notice, nothing at all. And I even had asked Mike Besser if he knew what was going on, and he with his building, and he claimed he didn't. So I guess it just feels like if the city approves this, you're basically just giving them permission to not pay attention to our deed, and now we have to go through other channels to resolve things. So those are my concerns.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to draw the committee's attention also to a few, as you know, hopefully you had a chance to read before we came tonight. We received some correspondence from a few other people.
Yes, I can just give a brief overview. These were included and uploaded to the packet as well. So the most recent update on the city's website, you'll be able to see these. Two pieces of email correspondence that came in pretty late today, so sorry for the late notice. The first was from Kevin Metcalf, who is the building owner of the portion to the north. Had some concerns about the maintenance of a cedar fence, about the discoloration and things like that. Did say specifically is in favor of the outdoor seating, does not oppose that addition, but does have some concern about the additional occupancy, potential impact on parking and those elements as well. And then the second piece of correspondence was from the owner of 5503, Susan Pride Colum, and that was with regards to, again, potential blocking of the patio, snow plowing and storage of those elements from the snow plows, but specifically access along the sidewalk in front of the strip malls. Again, both of those are uploaded in the meeting packet as well.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom that's on Zoom this evening in the interest of speaking at this public hearing? And I'm sorry, in the back of the room, that you're good?
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. That being the case, I'll close the public hearing. Nope.
Yes,
sorry, I didn't see your hand. Evan, go right ahead.
I thought he was sleeping back there.
Devin Renner, Executive Director of the Monona Chamber of Commerce. About a year and a half ago, I had submitted some emails to most of you on the board here and some members of the City Council about duplicating Madison's streetery program. I thought that was something in terms of combating COVID and the restrictions that restaurants were facing as a solid strategy to help restaurants survive that. And recently, within the last few months, Madison has gone ahead and made that permanent, that restaurants downtown can continue to take advantage of that program, at which point I reached out to the mayor and the city administrator about doing the same here in Madison, or excuse me, same here in Monona. So I have not had a chance to see the plan specifically, but we would certainly be in favor of this as a proposal. Simply because we don't know what's coming next, and anything that continues to allow our area restaurants to survive with any restrictions that may get put in place is certainly a good idea in my book.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll move to 6F, consideration of action on the request by Salvador's Tomato Pies for approval of a fence permit for a new patio at 5507 Monona Drive. Doug?
Thank you. I think by way of clarification and to address some of the points here, I think first off I should start by saying this item was specifically for the fence permit. The applications that came in was really the transition of a temporary patio permit as it related to the 2021 streetery, the COVID relief, moving that and transitioning that to the permanent patio. In speaking with the city clerk and just sort of going through the records, I think there's sort of two elements here. The first is the fence itself, the potential exception here to the guidelines and regulations for that. The second is the beer garden patio permit itself. And that was, again, pretty late in the day today, so I apologize for this, but there was some discussion about, as it relates to maybe a zoning permit or sort of an expansion of the use, specifically as it relates to things like the parking and things like that. So that is not specifically on the agenda for tonight. What my suggestion would be, this is scheduled for the May 10th license review meeting, which was also included in the notice that went out to adjacent property owners. My suggestion would be potentially for this to come for a zoning permit May 9th before the May 10th. It wouldn't delay any of this element, but it would allow the applicant to have that discussion about the use, about the expansion, as it relates to parking and those things which are not noticed here. But my suggestion would be this evening to talk about the fence as it relates to materials, layout, extent, and things like that to give some guidance, and potentially for the zoning permit to be reviewed on the 10th. So that would be the staff recommendation. And again, apologies for sort of the late notice. Just sort of going through the old records, how this has been done in the past, with change of clerk as well. It was really pivoting here from the temporary, which did not require additional review. It was meant to be, much leaner and much more agile, and then transitioning here to the permanent patio. So as it relates to the fence itself, this is deemed a fence within the street yard. The fence itself is forward of the building towards Monona Drive. Fences in the street yard are regulated in that they may be no taller than 42 inches in height, which would be 3.5 feet, and this application is for 5'4" of fencing. The applicant did outline the reasons why the fencing is being requested. There's screening from the wind and from the elements, as well as the headlights and some of the glare issues that have been there. There would be, again, the patio would be enclosed 82 feet across the frontage of the store, and there would be access into the store as well as through the parking lot itself. The plans were shared with department heads and specifically with police and fire, and I did not receive any comments about access or any concerns about that, and that would be staff's comment. Thank you.
Thank you. So my question before I open it up to it seems to me, as was just referenced by Devin Renner, that the City Council has not extended the streetery program as of yet.
So my understanding with that is that it was tied to the Dane County Public Health order, which it was valid as long as that was in place, and that is, as I understand, being lifted. And so the temporary streetery program effectively is no longer possible, and so it is transitioning to this more permanent patio as it was prior to COVID.
Right, but since there has been that change, would it not be the case that this patio would ordinarily not be approved without such a streetery program? It doesn't fit our code of ordinances without that streetery program, correct?
There would be a possibility of a patio permit, as I understand it, having looked at the Silver Eagle application, for example, and so it would most likely fall within the zoning permit for an expansion of use. And at that point, there may be conditions about such things as occupancy, parking, things like that. So that was my understanding, and the streetery program sort of allowed for that to happen without council or plan commission on a temporary basis.
I just wanted to get some clarity there because it seemed like we were getting a cart before the horse, if it were, as you were. So I appreciate that. So with that, I'll open it up for, again, this is where our focus here is the fencing. And actually, I have, Patrick, if you want to actually come back up to the podium, that would be great. Thank you. So I just have one question related to the materials, as you've already talked about, as we've already talked about, this is kind of an unusual choice for materials. I understand why you're trying to do it. How do you anchor all that wood down? Because it is, as was pointed out, it's very windy in that parking lot.
So it's designed that there's dirt-filled planters that it's anchored to, and inside those dirt-filled planters are also a total of 28 5-gallon jugs that are filled with water as ballast in the bottom of those planters. So it's pretty significant.
Okay. Thank you. Chris, did you want to start?
Sure. First, I'd like to address, is it Colleen? Yeah. We just found out about it on probably Friday. When did you deliver packets?
Friday afternoon.
Friday. So the way things happen in the city is you have to submit whatever you want 2 weeks ahead of a plan commission meeting, and then that goes to staff. They review it. They review it internally. They decide it has to go to any of the consultants, and by the time we see it as a plan commission, we're just like you. And one other thing they do is, of course, they send out letters, and whether this did or didn't require public notice as a matter of principle. We always send them out so you know what's going on in your neighborhood. So nobody's hiding anything from you. You got it about the same time we did, and that's the first time I knew they wanted to put a fence here too. So just so you know how it works, it's not like it's ever been seen by the city other than staff, or it's ever been discussed before.
Right.
And no matter what we would ever do, we do not supersede deed restrictions. If there's a deed restriction, that's certainly between the property owners, and we don't have the authority to supersede a deed restriction. To the fence. I'd love to say I love it, but I don't. And it's clearly, our ordinance on this is really clear, 42-inch maximum and a decorative fence. And you mentioned Silver Eagle, that's probably the best example we have. And they get headlights from two sides, not just one side. I would have a lot of difficulty. It makes it look like it's a side yard and it's a blocked off entrance, and I agree it hides your neighbor's front entrance. And so, of course, I've been thinking, well, what could we do? You know, we can allow, if we want, a 42-inch decorative fence. Mm-hmm. So if you took your fence design and just peeled it down so you only had whatever the lattice work was on top, a foot of that, you'd still have 30 inches, mm-hmm. which would probably block most headlights. Mm-hmm. And it's possible, if we all agreed, we could consider that a decorative fence. But to block the facade of the building and the neighbor, I think would be a really difficult thing for us to approve. The other thing we'd have to look at, I don't know what your intention is, but we would have a really hard time approving an expansion of use there, because that center is a known place that's very short on parking. Mm-hmm. And to do it, I don't know what your capacity is in the building, but if you want this to be a permanent thing, it would just be, you still stick to that capacity, whether the inside's half empty and everybody's out there enjoying something outside in the great weather, which can happen. It's just, for reference, we'd have a hard time expanding that use unless we came up with something with parking. That's one, I'm sorry, I'm going to go a sidebar that doesn't really pertain to you just a little bit, but that's another great example of what we've had in the past for shared uses for parking. That center used to be the Century Store, the main building, and that parking lot was wide open. There was no building where Insti Prints is, okay? Mm-hmm. Century left, and I'm not sure if Insti Prints went in part of that in the beginning or what, but it was a big space to fill, and so the Metcalfs found Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster, huge space, very few cars. Mm-hmm. And so they came and said, boy, Insti Prints would like to expand. We have nowhere. Can we put it over here in the parking? I said, whoa, parking. And we looked at it all, and they said, well, yeah, you know what, this is going to work because Blockbuster doesn't need many cars. So this is just the impact of the decisions we make for shared parking to come back down the road. Well, Blockbuster, as we all know, went out. Right? And so now they've got another big empty spot they've got to try to fill, and they come along with Princeton Express. Right. And I'm sure anybody that's here tonight can tell you what Princeton Express has done to the parking there. It's been a fight, and every time anybody applies for anything in this entire mall, they look at the neighbor for parking. Don't take my parking. It's at a huge premium. And so, although I didn't mean to get you in I can't talk about this under our open business at the end because it's not notice, so I have to talk about it now. So it's just something to keep your eyes open for. When we approve these things, uses change. And so we have to really watch with parking. There's no overflow parking. There's nowhere for people to go if they can't get a parking stall there. If I got to get my hair cut, where do I go if the parking lot's full? Mm-hmm. And when they came in with Princeton Express, they had all these matrices and spreadsheets on how this shared parking is going to work. You were nodding your head, you were here, and how it's going to work and how this isn't a problem. They have plenty of parking. Oops. Yeah. So since this was a agenda item, I could talk about that. Right. So, but I'd like to hear from other commissioners. But for me, it would be, unfortunately, it'd be really hard to approve a 5.5-foot fence. I agree with the one person that wrote in the cedar, but you can maintain it and make it look good. And I do know, it wasn't lattice work; it was 2x or whatever on edge. You know, that makes it decorative, right, rather than just a 42-inch tall fence. What was meant by the code really was what Silver Eagle did in the front, and you know it works for them. It's not ideal, but it works. And you know, if I go there in the summertime, I'd rather sit outside. Right. So I get that. As far as the access goes, you know, I feel for you, but there's nowhere for you to go from that sidewalk. I mean, going to the neighborhood bank, but we don't have walk paths that way. So since they're on the end of the building, you know, I would probably tend to say, you know, it isn't really impeding your neighbors. You'll have to look at your deed restrictions to see what happens. But it's not impeding a neighbor. The only person you're impeding is somebody walking down that sidewalk and into your restaurant. If you were in the middle, it would be completely different for me.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you have to, of course, worry about is if you did do this, someday you'll have people coming in the building. Is your intention then to still have the patio outside?
No, the intention is to move the patio to the side at some point, once remodeling.
Perfect, so you'd have the access. The only thing you have to worry about then is getting the carryouts in and out.
Yeah.
So you've got an area that's, cordoned off for alcohol consumption. You just have to make sure you have a way to get the general public in for picking up those pizzas.
Yes. And could I comment on the occupancy too? Of course. So the original pizza oven had the whole interior was designed as a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And it was operating more or less far in excess of what code would allow, with an occupancy of 99% in a facility that's doesn't have a sprinkler system. Yeah. So we've already eliminated half of that building as a restaurant. So we've cut it back to, so only the side that originally had the bar will be the restaurant. Okay. So we've eliminated at least half of what what they were operating at with the occupancy. So it should result in less cars in the parking lot.
Perfect. And I'm just going to ask, everybody else hasn't even had a chance yet, but I kind of tend towards what Doug recommended, is that we talk about it tonight and then go for a final approval in 2 weeks. Does that work with your timing?
Yeah, the material's there. I'd like to know if I need to return it. You know what I mean? Because I'm running up to.
I saw that there. Was that a bunch of sacrete there too?
No, that's material for the planters, like dirt.
Oh, I saw that.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw the pallet.
No, just
okay.
dirt.
All right, so I'll quit talking and see what everyone else thinks.
Thank you. Patrick, just when you said you're hoping, do you have a timetable? I know you're a man that has a lot of things going on, but do you have a timetable for when you might actually open?
We're hoping by fall.
You're hoping
yes.
by fall. Okay. So
sometime in the fall.
Right. Thank you. Susan?
It's helpful to know the question about it being temporary makes a difference also, so you're not necessarily talking about continuing this on into the future. And I have the same concerns about the fence. I didn't particularly care for the look of it, and I think the height is a problem. And I drove around and looked at fences otherwhere. The Silver Eagle was the one that came to mind because the headlights go right into that area, and I don't know if they have a few plantings inside or if people just ignore it or what. But they're a little different in that there's a few feet between the cars. You're like right there. Cars. So I get that it's different. But Mr. Brews, Qdoba, they've all got the 42-foot fences, and that's kind of what every place has. You drive down Cottage Grove, right now that's Madison. We're the Muska Lounge, Madison, I know that, but same fence. And they've got the same deal going on. It's part of the sidewalk. As someone who goes to the seafood company there, when I park my car, it's a little annoying to come down the sidewalk and go out, have to walk out around it, but I do it. It's not that big a deal. And particularly since you're talking about, you didn't give a start date for this, but that it would be out by October 15th. I think that is a big deal, that it's not there in the winter, so people you're not taking up the sidewalk in the winter. I thought too, if we decide that the cedar is okay, it does need to be shorter. And I thought you do get some additional height. I was thinking even if you went slightly above the 42 with that lattice work or whatever you called it, but keeping it at 42 would be better yet. Because I guess when I drove around I looked at that, and since all the fences are at 42, when people are sitting, they can kind of still see over them, but they're not. It seems pretty comfortable to me. And also when you're Madison, when you're other cities, San Francisco, I was just out there again, and they've extended theirs, and now they're on a battle because it's taking up parking, because they actually come out into the street with their, whatever you call those, bump outs. But they're so popular because people like them a lot, and it does really help the businesses. Really wreaks havoc with parking in the city, but it's, but they're dealing with it. And they're not always real high. Some of them are, I guess. But I think the height is an issue for me. So I think if we kept it at the 42, including some of that lattice top, and I don't know when you say ordered materials, if you've already ordered this fencing, if you just cut it off the bottom to make it shorter. It just seems to me that would take care of the issue for the most part. If it's really windy, I don't know if that might still be an issue, but it's not windy all the time. I guess I just think to me the height is a big deal and a problem, especially with a solid fence like that, with a cedar fence. And yeah, it would be nice to have it maintained so that it's attractive. So, yeah, and I know what you do is attractive, so. And then, so in the end, when you move it around to the side, that it eliminates some of the concerns. I mean, you still have the fence issue and the height, that whole thing would be better. And I do like the idea of waiting until May 10th, partly because we need to check the deed restriction, obviously, and find out what the issue is of that. Well, I guess, and just this is more of a comment, because it's not really, I guess, our business to decide, but with the parking issue, if you have employees parking in front of another business, that seems to me just a matter of, like, talk about that, work it out, maybe tell them park. I just pulled into a Culver's today, and I happened to. Okay, and I happened to notice when I was coming out of Culver's that an employee was parking on the street and walking in, because clearly they've been told not to park in the parking lot. So, you can't park on Monona Drive, I get that, but but something to work that out, and maybe if your manager didn't deal with it, maybe that's a case where you could step in. That's all. I know it's not a plan commission issue, but it just seems like something that could be resolved. Sure. All right, that's it. Brian?
Yeah, actually, when you note that the longer term idea of having it on the side, when I saw this fencing, that was immediately what I thought of, like, oh, this is perfect. It's going to go on that side. Nice private space. It kind of tucks you away as a private eating space. Then when I recognized it was out front, I took my tour around town going, okay, I remember our discussion about the Silver Eagle one, because we had major discussions about outdoor seating with people pulling up to it. I mean, we had concerns of, are people going to roll up onto that curb? And we had a lot of discussion about safety of people in that space. And I did some of the things of, like, Donnie, of, like, okay, where are all the different spaces? And not only is it the 42 piece, the decorative fencing tends to be consistently that kind of more wrought iron kind of look fence. I'm not opposed to something different than that, but I think the intention on the street side is lower, not only for some vision, but also to not block vision of neighbors and components of that. If it's going to move to the side, is there a reason you wouldn't start with it on the side and skip the front altogether?
I don't know. I don't know if it'll work because of those planting beds there. It'll just end up, the $14,000 project will end up being more like $25,000. That's probably why.
Yeah. And I mean, I would like, if you're investing in something on the front for temporary usage, I'd want to make sure it's something that you could use long term.
Well, we
on
can.
The side.
That was the idea of doing this, because the same dimensions would be used on the side. You wouldn't really have to add much in the way to do that.
And that's why I think there's some of the concern regarding the height aspect. If the height aspect becomes the bigger issue, it potentially has an impact on being able to move it to the side and still have that higher height to be able to have a nicer kind of tucked away outdoor seating.
The only, may I ask this question? Mm-hmm. The only concern I have about that is that in the city of Madison, you need to be able to see what's going on the patio, like if you're serving alcohol. Mm-hmm. I would imagine it's the same in Monona. So that would be the other issue about putting it on the side right now, because the building's just not equipped for that right now. So,
and I can't remember how we've handled that at, like, the smoking patios, I think, is the simplest thing.
Right.
But we had it. There are windows on all of those.
I don't think you have windows all that way.
I don't. No.
But some of these other smoking patios, I don't believe there are windows.
I don't think they have windows that view into the smoking patio.
Yeah, so I think they
may be grandfathered in.
And that smoking patio is also enclosed.
Yeah.
Right.
That's on the side.
Yep, on the side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Tully's has it, Silver Eagle has it, and those are the two that jump out at.
They're both full, but they're on the side.
They're on the side, but I know people are bringing alcohol out there, so I think the monitoring of the alcohol is the same, which would be something for a different group other than us. But,
license review.
So I think the side could be a possibility. Just bringing that up.
I definitely look at that. If that's a possibility, and I can see if we can rework that.
Because I think it was either by because that came up at Silver Eagle, because what they didn't want there is individuals to go inside, purchase drinks, and bring their own drinks out. It had to be service from the inside. That was their way of maintaining customer contact.
Oh, yeah, we would have servers too, so, yeah.
So I think that may be a possibility. Those are my concerns as it relates to the fence itself.
Let's start with the timing. You said you have a limited window for returning things.
I think so, yeah.
Does that work with that? 'Cause
I got to ask. I have to ask the
I
contractor.
don't you needlessly get stuck with the non-returnable
Yes.
items. Because I like the patio. I'm not concerned of the style necessarily. I would agree with the comments on the height and blocking visibility of neighboring tenants. Initially, I was concerned about circulation in front of the storefront, but I don't think that's as big of an issue. You addressed some of my concerns, adding 1,000 square feet of extra dining, parking, but you addressed all that.
Could we remove 1,500 square feet of dining?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to be an issue for me. I know this is just about the fence, but I'm just going through my list. Yeah, I don't, with it being temporary, I don't have a problem with the cedar fence. I have the impression that you're going to keep it nice and tidy and looking really, really good. I have no doubts about that, but I mean, if we were to grant that, it could be a condition, just like if you have a dog run and the turf doesn't, like, what's the difference? If it grays and isn't maintained, then you could address it then.
Cool mural.
But yeah, I mean, I want to support the outdoor dining experience in Monona in a kind of a fair and equitable way, though. And if it's looking at different materials, I'm fine with that. The height thing, I think, is a valid concern. I love the idea of it being on the side, but I know that's for a future conversation. I don't think I have anything else to add to the conversation. Let me see here. Did you want to speak to the building deeds at all?
I don't know anything about it. My landlord does.
Okay.
So I need to ask him about it.
Okay, that's all I had.
Great, thank you. I have to admit that I was really hoping that you, when you opened the restaurant, that it was going to look really snazzy on the outside, and like that it might spur the rest of that strip mall being upgraded as well, and so the whole idea of like having fencing in front of it. So it's just to say that I certainly agree with the rest of the folks here that I think the side's better. And I struggle a little bit with the cedar, but as long as it's lower, I'm okay with it and well kept. And by the way, Chris, I also remember even when to your point around parking, I remember when the church and which Asian art is it? The karate? Is it karate? Yeah, when the karate studio was going and the church was going in there, we were talking about parking even for them. I mean, it was what were their hours? How was it going to balance with the people? I mean, that lot's always been a problem. Yeah.
Can I do this quick sidebar? I'm
Yeah.
going to get on my soapbox. When we approved the change to the fitness company,
Yeah.
the owner came and said, well, we won't put anybody upstairs because there's just not enough parking, so we'll just do that and we'll leave the upstairs empty.
Right. Right.
Oops.
Right. So, does anybody have anything? And if not, do we have a motion, Chris?
I was just going to muddle a little bit for me. I like the seating out front because that's a better experience. I think as a customer, I really like that. And to be by the hustle and bustle, see people going by in cars. You go on that side, I love the bank, but that's all you're going to see is the bank and a retaining wall. You've got a retaining wall there. So I mean, there's ambiance for this potential thing for me, so I'm just muddling this, but the front is a lot nicer spot to sit and have a pizza and a beer and enjoy the night.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't totally rule that out. I think it'd be long-term better for you.
I just kind of assumed that Patrick was going to make a, really incredible ambiance, regardless of where it is. I just made that assumption. So, do I have a motion? Are we not doing a motion?
I'll move the table.
We're going to wait on the zoning?
It was listed for action, so I'll move the table.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to table. Do I have a
Second.
second? I have a second to table. Okay. So all it takes, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. So, Patrick, do you understand what your next move has to be?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That takes us to reports of staff and commission members.
Thank you. By way of economic development update, the first one I wanted to say, just received today the final materials for the Monona Garden project, including TIF materials, site civil, and so most likely, again, jumping around that May 23rd meeting, just need to check availability, via Becker review, and those types of things, but I have final materials for that. So
that'll be a final review?
Most likely, yes. Yeah.
They've been through CDA?
So the CDA has reviewed. We'll be looking to schedule for May for them as well. They've had a couple meetings.
We'll go through CDA first?
I'll need to check the scheduling of that.
That was our request. They've been here a lot. We said go through CDA and see if this is even a project before you come back again.
Yeah.
I know they've been through multiple times. There's been a couple meetings. So the May meeting date for CDA is still up in the air, so we'll see when that schedules. It may just push them into early June.
I would suggest
we can do that.
No, the CDA is even interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, they know what their building can afford to build to.
Certainly. Excellent. And then other items for the May 9th meeting, we'll have the consideration of action for the Slendy CSM. Those materials have come through, and so they'll be getting reviewed. The Public Works Committee meeting will also be just the week before that, the Wednesday before, so it'll be reviewed in advance there. We'll also be looking at a potential ordinance revision for boathouses in the residential districts, and just some clarification and potential dimensional elements to that as well. So I'll be bringing that forward.
What's the issue on it?
Clarification, I would say, in terms of the some of the good design guidelines for those, as well as potential size on those as well. So currently they're regulated under the accessory structures, and so they can be, depending upon the lot size, they can be up to 1,000 square feet, for example.
30, I think, is it 30 or 1,000? Yeah.
It's 1,000, yes. So if there's no other buildings on accessory structures. So a little bit more clarification, looking to county and other city ordinances for sort of guidance on those elements.
Well, just as a background, other cities don't even allow them lots of times, and Monona, we've always allowed them, thinking we'd much rather have the boats in there than leaking and dripping, hanging over the water, and it's a lot cleaner look, too.
Mm-hmm. And it certainly wouldn't, it would be more of a clarification rather than any...
The biggest clarification I can see I need is people try to build them, and then they try to put a enclosed patio above them, and that exceeds the height guidelines, and we have a lot of complaints we get about that. The accessory building, I think, is only 14 foot.
14 feet, yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So that's something where I know in the past ZBA has given out exception if they're, for example, on a 20-foot bank, and it won't obstruct anybody's vision, but other than that, they haven't done it. As far as any other outbuildings, there are no other outbuildings allowed on the lakeside.
Correct.
In Monona, so the only outbuilding you could possibly have would be a boathouse.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. And then also expecting there'll be most likely a couple signage applications that are coming through as well. So I have those in my inbox, and I just need to get those scheduled as well. So couple items coming forward in May. Still looking pretty busy.
You could give us a night off sometime.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have have any updates, discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Nothing from staff.
I would just say that I know that the ad hoc committee on DEI is completing their report. That's to come to the city council, and I think by all understandings, I think they're really close in terms of recommendations they're going to make to the city council and the city. As follow-up efforts there. I would also say that we meaning all of the city council members, recently completed the Black History for a New Day course that Nehemiah offers, which is a 9-week-long course, 2 hours each week. It was on Zoom. And we had to, of course, split up so that we weren't a quorum into different sections, but we did that and just completed that, and highly recommend the course. It's only $300 for the course, and I found it to be a really good experience. In terms of updates and discussion on sustainability efforts, we just completed our second annual recycling event on Saturday. Not nearly as many cars as last year, but we still had over 100 cars and quite a bit of tonnage over a 4-hour period, in addition to a lot of styrofoam and cardboard. So, but most importantly, we even had a full-size refrigerator. It might have been after you left. No, I saw it. That was before you left. Yeah, and appliances, and still those tube TVs. They just keep coming. So it was a good effort. I want to thank all the volunteers that helped with that. Any plan commission requests for information for city staff? Anything? No?
Actually, just to go back to the sustainability thing, the school district has a ribbon cutting for the solar panels on May 21st, which
Fantastic.
I think reception at 9 and at 10. So just in case you're interested.
Can you get the giant scissors?
I'm not sure what the plan is, but hopefully, yeah, I'll ask them. They should. They look good. They're fun.
Yeah, I just want to say in terms of our overall city goals that the high school's effort and putting that on their building is definitely boosting our percentages big time. Since we get to count you as community as opposed to, municipality, and of course, we don't have buildings that size, so it's
Right.
a huge boost, and kudos to everybody in the school.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Winnequa, too?
No, just the high school. But Winnequa, the city was looking at it one time, but at that point, we weren't going to get any advantage for it, and we had roof repairs and stuff. So that's something we could still, we have talked about it, expanding it. We'll get this done first and see, yeah. But, yeah.
No, it's great. Terrific effort. I should also say that the one other thing, on the sustainability front, the city council did pass a new adjustment to the ordinances at the last meeting, which was to support the No Mow May effort by encouraging residents to let their grass grow in the month of May. To support pollinators. And in fact, there was a big article in the New York Times. Wisconsin's actually a leader in this arena, and Appleton actually started it and did the research, and not mowing your grass for the month of May from the research ends up a 40% increase in pollinators, which is pretty significant at a time when we're losing a lot of bees. So we're gonna be supporting that. There's already been PSAs cut for WVMO. We're probably on WVMO, and want to thank Elisa for all that help. And we might have yard signs.
Are we going?
Maybe. We're working on yard signs. We have them designed, we just haven't. But anyway, so I would encourage people to give themselves a break for the month of May and not mow their yard, and give the bees and pollinators a break. Anything else? Plan commission requests? None? No others? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move adjournment.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Second from Susan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, all.